The snow had started falling around 2 o'clock that Thursday afternoon, the kind of thick, heavy flakes that promised to blanket everything by nightfall. I pulled my old navy coat tighter as I pushed my shopping cart through the automatic doors of Peterson's grocery, stamping my boots on the mat to shake off the white powder already accumulating on them. 58 years old, and I still got a small thrill from the warmth that greeted me inside the store. It was one of those simple pleasures I'd learned to appreciate over the years, though I suppose learned isn't quite the right word. It was more like I'd been forced to find joy in smaller and smaller things as the bigger joys had slowly drained away from my life. I grabbed a cart, one with a squeaky wheel, naturally, and began my usual Thursday route through the aisles. Patrick would be leaving on Friday morning for another one of his long-haul trucking runs, and I needed to stock up. Not that he ever asked what I'd be eating while he was gone. Not that he'd asked me much of anything in the past 5 years. 32 years of marriage. 32 years to the man I'd met at a county fair when I was 26, the man who'd spun me around on the dance floor and promised me the world. Now we barely spoke more than a dozen words a day to each other. We slept in separate bedrooms. We ate meals in silence, when we ate together at all. I shook my head, trying to dispel the familiar ache in my chest. The produce section was having a sale on apples, Honeycrisp my favorite, but I reached for the cheaper Granny Smiths instead. Patrick monitored our bank account like a hawk monitored a field mouse. Every receipt, every penny had to be accounted for. I'd learned not to indulge, even in something as small as better apples. As I made my way through the store, my mind wandered to Shane. My boy, 28 now, living in California, working as a software engineer for some tech company whose name I could never quite remember. We used to talk every week when he first moved out there, 5 years ago. Now I was lucky if I got a text message on my birthday. I told myself he was busy. Young men building careers didn't have time to call their mothers. But late at night in my empty bedroom, I wondered if I'd done something wrong, if I'd failed him somehow. Patrick said Shane had just moved on with his life, that I should stop bothering the boy. So I had. I'd stopped calling, stopped texting first, and Shane had drifted away. Ma'am, I need you to step aside. The sharp voice jolted me back to the present. I was at the checkout counter, apparently standing in the way while the young cashier, couldn't have been more than 19 with bleached blonde hair and a name tag that read Brittany, was dealing with the customer ahead of me. I'm sorry, but you're $12 short, Brittany was saying, her voice dripping with impatience. You need to put something back. I looked at the customer, an elderly black woman, probably in her 70s, wearing a threadbare brown coat that had seen better decades. Her hands, weathered and trembling slightly, were counting out crumpled dollar bills and loose change on the counter. I thought I had enough, the woman said softly. Her voice carried the weight of someone used to disappointment. I counted at home, I was sure. Well, you didn't count right. Brittany sighed dramatically, as if this were the greatest inconvenience of her day. Either put something back or get out of line. There are other customers waiting. The elderly woman's eyes scanned her groceries. A loaf of bread, a small jar of peanut butter, a carton of milk, 2 cans of soup, a box of store-brand tea, and a tiny package of butter cookies. Not a single luxury item. Just the basics for survival. Her trembling fingers reached for the butter cookies. I suppose I can do without these, she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. That's when something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the way her voice cracked. Maybe it was the look of resigned sadness in her eyes, a look I'd seen in my own mirror too many times. Maybe it was just that I was tired of watching people be cruel to each other, tired of staying small and quiet, tired of living a life where $12 for cookies felt like an impossible luxury. Wait, I heard myself say. I'll cover it. I stepped forward, reaching into my purse for my wallet. The elderly woman turned to me, her eyes widening. Oh no, dear, I couldn't. Please, I said, meeting her gaze. It's just $12. Let me do this. Brittany rolled her eyes, but took my card when I handed it to her. As she rang up the additional charge, I saw Patrick's face in my mind, the way his jaw would tighten when he reviewed our bank statement. The interrogation that would follow. Who did you give $12 to? A stranger? Are you stupid, Maureen? Do you think money grows on trees? But standing there, watching the elderly woman's eyes fill with tears of gratitude, I found I didn't care. God bless you, child, the woman said as Brittany bagged her groceries with obvious irritation. God bless you. It's nothing, I said, though my hands were shaking slightly. Patrick was going to be furious. The elderly woman took her bags, but instead of leaving, she stood there, studying my face with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. Her eyes, a deep, warm brown, seemed to look right through me, seeing things I'd tried to hide even from myself. Come with me for just a moment, she said quietly. Please, just outside. Something in her voice made me follow. We stepped to the side of the entrance, out of the main flow of customers. The snow was falling heavier now, creating a curtain of white around us. The woman set down her bags and took both of my hands in hers. Her skin was soft, despite the weathering, and her grip was surprisingly strong. What's your name, dear? She asked. Maureen Kelly. I'm Dorothy Williams. She smiled, but there was something urgent in her expression. Maureen, I need you to listen to me very carefully. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound strange, maybe even crazy, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? I should have pulled away. I should have made an excuse and left. But something in her eyes, a combination of kindness and fierce determination, kept me rooted to the spot. I suppose so, I said. Dorothy glanced around, as if checking to make sure no one could overhear us. Then she leaned in close, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. In 3 days, when the man in your house leaves, don't touch the snow in your yard. No matter what happens, no matter what he tells you to do, don't shovel that snow until the morning after he's gone. Your life depends on it. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back a step, my heart racing. What? How do you know my husband is leaving? How do you? Please just listen. Dorothy's grip on my hands tightened. I know this sounds insane. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I've been doing this work for 40 years, helping women, and I've learned to recognize the signs. Signs? What signs? I don't understand. At the grocery store today, I saw things, Dorothy continued, her words coming faster now. Your husband, I saw him watching you through the window when you paid for my groceries. The way he looked at you, it wasn't love, Maureen. It was calculation. Like you were a problem he was solving. My mouth went dry. Patrick had been waiting in the car. I told him I'd just be a minute. Had he really been watching? And if so, what had Dorothy seen that I'd missed? I noticed other things too, Dorothy went on. He was wearing an expensive diamond ring, a Rolex watch. But you, dear, and please don't take this the wrong way, you're wearing a coat that's been mended at least 3 times. Your boots have cardboard inside them. I can see it poking through the sole. Yet you didn't hesitate to help a stranger with $12. Heat flooded my cheeks. I thought I'd hidden the cardboard better than that. That tells me who you are, Dorothy said gently. And it tells me who he is. When a man adorns himself while his wife goes without, when a woman with so little still gives freely while her husband hoards. That's a sign, Maureen. A dangerous sign. I still don't understand about the snow. Dorothy reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper. Before I explain more, I need you to have this. It's the phone number for Officer Sarah Mitchell. She's with the local police department. I know her well. She's helped many women over the years. I took the paper with trembling fingers. Why would I need a police officer? Just in case. Dorothy's eyes bore into mine. Now about the snow. I need to tell you something, but you have to understand. I'm not psychic. I don't have any magical powers. I'm just an old woman who spent 40 years as a family counselor, and in that time I learned to see patterns. She paused, glancing around again before continuing. I have a friend named Frank Morrison. He works at Hartley Trucking Company, the same company where your husband works. Frank came to me for counseling 2 years ago about his own family problems. Last week, he was at the company parking lot when he overheard your husband talking to another man. He didn't mean to eavesdrop, but, well, what he heard troubled him enough that he called me. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What did he hear? I whispered. Your husband was talking about Friday, 3 days from now. He mentioned heavy snow in the forecast. He told the other man, I'll tell my wife to shovel the driveway Friday night. That way, there won't be any evidence Saturday morning. Frank said the other man laughed and said something about, the appraiser won't leave tracks then. The world tilted. I gripped Dorothy's hands to keep from falling. Appraiser? Evidence? Frank tried to hear more, but they moved away. He got the license plate of the other man's car and gave it to me. I did some research. Dorothy's voice was steady, but her eyes were filled with concern. The man is a real estate appraiser, Maureen. I think your husband is planning to have someone come to your house while you don't know about it. And if you shovel that snow, any footprints from Friday night will be erased. You'll never know anyone was there. But why? Why would Patrick... I couldn't finish the sentence. My mind was reeling. I don't know the full plan, Dorothy admitted. But in 40 years of counseling, I've seen this pattern before. When a husband hides things, when he controls the money, when he brings in appraisers secretly, it's never good, dear. Never. I stood there, snow gathering on my shoulders, trying to process what I was hearing. Part of me wanted to dismiss it all as the ravings of a confused old woman. But another part, the part that had felt increasingly uneasy over the past few months, the part that had noticed Patrick's late-night phone calls and his sudden interest in our property documents, that part knew Dorothy was telling the truth. What should I do? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. First, promise me you won't shovel that snow, Dorothy said firmly. Let it fall, let it stay. Whatever footprints appear, let them be visible Saturday morning. Second, if you see anything at all that seems wrong, call Officer Mitchell. Don't hesitate. Don't second-guess yourself. She pressed the paper with the phone number into my palm. I know we just met, Dorothy said, her voice softening. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'm asking you to trust your own instincts. Deep down, you know something is wrong. You've known for a while, haven't you? Tears stung my eyes. I nodded. Then be smart. Be careful. And remember, you are stronger than you think you are. Dorothy picked up her grocery bags. Now I need to go before we both freeze. But Maureen, thank you for the $12. And I hope very soon you'll see that act of kindness for what it really was. What was it? I asked. Dorothy smiled. The moment you started saving yourself. With that, she turned and walked into the swirling snow, leaving me standing there with a scrap of paper clutched in my frozen hand and 1,000 questions racing through my mind. The drive home from Peterson's grocery felt like the longest 15 minutes of my life. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, and Dorothy's words echoed in my mind like a warning bell I couldn't silence. Don't shovel the snow. Your life depends on it. Patrick's truck was already in the driveway when I pulled up. My stomach clenched. He usually didn't get home until after 6 on Thursdays. It was barely 4:30. I gathered the grocery bags from the trunk, my movements mechanical, and trudged through the already accumulating snow to the front door. The house we'd lived in for 23 years suddenly felt unfamiliar, almost threatening. Patrick was sitting at the kitchen table, our bank statement spread out in front of him. His reading glasses, the expensive designer ones he'd bought himself last month, were perched on his nose. He didn't look up when I entered. You're late, he said flatly. The snow made traffic slow. I set the bags on the counter and began unpacking them, my back to him. My hands were shaking. $12.47 at Peterson's grocery, Patrick said, his voice taking on that edge I'd learned to recognize over the years. The edge that meant an interrogation was coming. The transaction went through 20 minutes ago. You told me the grocery budget this week was $35. You've spent $47. I turned slowly. There was a woman, an elderly woman who didn't have enough money for her groceries. I helped her. The silence that followed was deafening. Patrick removed his glasses carefully, folded them, and set them on top of the bank statement. When he looked up at me, His blue eyes were cold. "You helped a stranger," he said, each word precisely articulated. "With our money, without asking me. It was $12, Patrick. $12 that wasn't yours to give away." He stood up, and I instinctively took a step back. He'd never hit me. Patrick's cruelty had always been more subtle than that, but something in his posture made me nervous. "Do you have any idea how hard I work, Maureen? Driving those long hauls, sometimes 70 hours a week, while you sit here in this house doing what? Reading? Watching television? And then you just throw my money away on some woman you don't even know?" "I'm sorry," I whispered, the words automatic after so many years. "I just thought—" "You thought!" Patrick laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's always been your problem, hasn't it? Thinking you can make decisions without me, thinking you matter." The words hit me like a slap. I turned back to the groceries, blinking away tears, putting cans into the cupboard with trembling hands. I heard Patrick move behind me, heard his footsteps on the linoleum. For a moment, I thought he might leave, might go to his bedroom or out to his truck. Instead, his hand landed on my shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said, and his voice had shifted to something softer, almost gentle. "That was harsh. I've just been stressed about work. You know how it is." I did know. This was the pattern. Cruelty followed by apology. Just enough warmth to keep me off balance, never quite sure which version of Patrick would appear next. "It's okay," I murmured, even though it wasn't. His hand squeezed my shoulder. "I'm leaving Friday morning for a 5-day run. Big job, good money. I need you to do something for me while I'm gone." My heart started pounding. Friday, 3 days from now, just like Dorothy had said. "What do you need?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "The forecast says heavy snow tomorrow night into Friday. I need you to shovel the driveway Friday evening. Not Saturday morning, Friday night as soon as the snow stops." His hand was still on my shoulder, his grip firm. "It's important, Maureen. If the snow sits overnight, it'll turn to ice by Saturday morning, and it'll be dangerous. I don't want you slipping and hurting yourself." Something in his tone made my skin crawl. Patrick hadn't worried about me hurting myself in years. "Actually," he continued, "I called a plumber to come by Saturday morning, early, around 7. There's been a weird noise in the pipes in the basement. I need the driveway clear so he can get his truck in." A plumber. Saturday morning. But Dorothy had said an appraiser. "I didn't hear any noise in the pipes," I said carefully. Patrick's hand tightened on my shoulder, just slightly. "Well, I did. I'm taking care of it. All you need to do is make sure that driveway is shoveled Friday night. Can you do that for me?" Yes, of course." "Good." He released my shoulder and moved toward the doorway. "I'm going out for a while. Don't wait up." After he left, I stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring at nothing. Then I pulled out the piece of paper Dorothy had given me and looked at the phone number for Officer Sarah Mitchell. Was I being paranoid? Patrick's explanation made sense. A plumber coming to fix noisy pipes, wanting the driveway clear for safety. But then why had Frank Morrison heard him talking about an appraiser? Why had Patrick looked at me through the grocery store window with calculation in his eyes, according to Dorothy? And why, after 5 years of barely noticing my existence, was he suddenly concerned about me slipping on ice? I tucked the paper into my pocket and finished putting away the groceries, my mind racing. I woke up Friday morning to find Patrick already dressed and loading his truck. The snow had stopped overnight, leaving about 4 inches on the ground. Not the heavy snowfall he'd predicted for later. I made him coffee and toast, which he accepted with a grunt. As he was about to leave, he pulled me into a hug, something he hadn't done in months. "Remember about the driveway," he said into my hair. "Tonight, as soon as it stops snowing." I remember. After his truck disappeared down the street, I went to the kitchen window and stared out at our backyard. The snow lay pristine and undisturbed, and I thought about Dorothy's warning. Around 10 o'clock, I was in the living room trying to read when I heard Patrick's voice. My heart jumped. I thought he'd come back. But then I realized the sound was coming from his bedroom. I crept down the hallway and pressed my ear to the door. He must have left his tablet on, still connected to a call. Friday night, like we discussed, a man's voice was saying. Not Patrick. Someone else. Are you sure she'll clear the snow? I told her to. That was Patrick's voice, but there was something different about it. Harder. She does what she's told. And the documents? In the safe, but I don't have the combination. She changed it last year after that thing with Shane. My blood ran cold. What thing with Shane? What documents? Can you get it? Working on it, but even if I can't, once everything's in motion, it won't matter. The power of attorney I had Williams forge should hold up long enough. The sound cut off abruptly. The call must have ended. I stood there in the hallway, my whole body shaking. Power of attorney? Forged? What was Patrick planning? I went to our bedroom and pulled out the lockbox where I kept important documents. My hands fumbled with the combination. Shane's birthday, 0328. Inside were our marriage certificate, my birth certificate, the deed to the house. The deed to the house. It was in my name, only my name. My grandmother had left me the down payment, and when Patrick and I had bought the house 23 years ago, the mortgage broker had suggested putting it solely in my name because my credit was better. If Patrick wanted to do something with the house, sell it, mortgage it, he would need my signature or a forged power of attorney. Patrick called Saturday afternoon, his voice cheerful, too cheerful. Hey, honey, just checking in. How are you doing? Fine, I said, gripping the phone. Good, good. Listen, I was thinking, when I get back, maybe we should go out to dinner. That Italian place you like. How does that sound? I hadn't been to Romano's in 3 years. Patrick always said it was too expensive. That sounds nice, I managed. Great. Oh, and Maureen? I forgot to mention, I left some papers on my desk. Property tax stuff. Could you check if there's an envelope from the county? My heart raced. What kind of envelope? Just a regular white envelope. Says county assessor's office on it. I need to know if it came. I went to his room, something I rarely did anymore, and looked at his desk. Among the scattered bills and truck maintenance records, I found what he was talking about. A white envelope, already opened. I found it, I said into the phone. What's the date on the letter inside? I pulled out the document. It was indeed from the county assessor's office, dated 2 weeks ago, but it wasn't about property taxes. It was about a requested property valuation. November 28th, I said, my voice barely steady. Perfect. Thanks, honey. I'll call you tomorrow. Don't forget about the snow tonight. Supposed to be heavy. After he hung up, I read the letter more carefully. Someone had requested an official property valuation for our house. The request had been filed by Patrick and Maureen Kelly, joint owners. But I hadn't filed any request, and the house wasn't in joint ownership. I sat down at Patrick's desk, my mind whirling. Then I started going through his drawers, something I'd never done before. I felt like I was violating his privacy, but the fear growing in my chest overrode my guilt. In the bottom drawer, under a stack of old trucking route maps, I found a folder. Inside were printouts of our property value from real estate websites, estimates of what our house could sell for, $315,000 to $340,000. There were notes in Patrick's handwriting. Equity approximately $280,000, and enough to cover everything's fresh start. Fresh start? My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the papers. There was more. A bank statement for an account I didn't know existed. In Patrick's name only. Recent deposits totaling $8,000 over the past 3 months. And withdrawals. Large withdrawals to something called Silver Palace Casino online. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, and walked out of the room in a daze. Sunday night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed listening to the wind howl outside, watching the snow begin to fall through my window. The forecast had been right. This was going to be a big storm. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from Patrick. Snow's really coming down here too. Remember? Shovel tonight. Plumber coming early. Love you. Love you. He hadn't said those words in months. I got up and went to the window. The snow was already 6 inches deep and still falling heavily. In the streetlight's glow, I could see it accumulating on the driveway, on the walkway, on the lawn. All I had to do was wait until it stopped, then go out and shovel. Clear away the evidence of whatever was going to happen. Just like Patrick wanted. Just like I'd done for 32 years. Exactly what Patrick wanted. I thought about Dorothy Williams counting out her crumpled dollars for basic groceries. I thought about her warm hands gripping mine, her urgent voice. Your life depends on it. I thought about the forged power of attorney, the property valuation, the casino withdrawals, the mysterious fresh start Patrick had written about. And I thought about the plumber who was really an appraiser, who would come while Patrick was conveniently away, who would leave footprints that I was supposed to erase. I went to the hall closet and pulled out the snow shovel, stood there holding it, feeling its weight. Then I put it back. I went to my bedroom, got back into bed, and pulled the covers up to my chin. Tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, I would see what footprints appeared in the snow. I would see what Patrick had planned, and I would finally know the truth about my marriage, no matter how much it hurt. The snow fell all night while I lay awake, listening to it whisper against the windows, and for the first time in 5 years, I felt something that might have been hope. Or maybe it was just terror disguised as courage. I woke at 6 o'clock Saturday morning, my heart already racing before I was fully conscious. For a moment, I lay still, listening to the silence of the house. The storm had stopped sometime in the early morning hours. Slowly, I got out of bed and walked to the window. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. Footprints. Clear, distinct footprints in the fresh snow. They started at the street, came up our driveway, then veered off to circle the entire house. The tracks stopped at every window. My bedroom window, the living room windows, the kitchen window. At each stop, the snow was more disturbed, as if someone had stood there for several minutes, looking in. But the longest stop was at the living room window, the window that faced our safe, where I kept the house deed and all our important documents. My hands flew to my mouth. If I had shoveled the snow last night as Patrick had insisted, these footprints would have been erased. I would have woken up this morning to a clean white blanket of snow, never knowing that someone had prowled around my house in the darkness. Dorothy had been right. God help me, she'd been right. With shaking hands, I grabbed my phone and pulled out the crumpled paper with Officer Sarah Mitchell's number. My fingers could barely dial. Officer Mitchell, a professional female voice answered on the second ring. My name is Maureen Kelly, I said, my voice trembling. Dorothy Williams gave me your number. There are footprints around my house. Someone was here last night. Are you safe right now, Mrs. Kelly? Is anyone in the house with you? No, I'm alone. My husband is away on a business trip. Stay inside. Lock all your doors. I'm 15 minutes away. She arrived in 12. Officer Sarah Mitchell was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and an air of competence that immediately made me feel safer. She photographed the footprints from every angle, measured them, took notes. Size 11 men's work boots, she said, crouching near the living room window. And look here, he was carrying something. These deeper impressions suggest extra weight. Could be camera equipment or measuring tools. Measuring tools? I whispered. Sarah stood up and looked at me directly. Mrs. Kelly, Dorothy called me last night. She told me about your situation. I need you to be completely honest with me. Has your husband ever mentioned selling this house? I told her everything. About the conversation Frank Morrison had overheard. About finding the property valuation estimates in Patrick's desk. About the bank account I didn't know existed and the casino withdrawals. About the forged power of attorney Patrick had mentioned in that phone call. Sarah's expression grew grimmer with each detail. I need to make some calls, she said. Do you have a neighbor with security cameras? Mrs. Cooper next door. Helen Cooper. She's very security conscious. Her house was broken into a few years ago. 20 minutes later, Sarah and I were sitting in Helen Cooper's living room, watching footage from her driveway camera. Helen, a spry 65-year-old with silver hair, kept patting my hand sympathetically. There, Sarah said, pausing the video. 11:47 p.m. A man appeared on screen, walking up our driveway. He was wearing a dark coat and carrying a professional-looking camera and what appeared to be a laser measuring device. He moved methodically around the house, stopping at each window, taking photographs, making measurements. He was there for 43 minutes, Sarah said, checking the timestamps. This wasn't a burglar, Mrs. Kelly. This was someone conducting a professional assessment. She zoomed in on the license plate of the car parked on the street. Within 30 minutes, she had a name. Robert Patterson, licensed real estate appraiser. Sarah called Robert Patterson while I sat at Helen's kitchen table, drinking tea I couldn't taste. Mr. Patterson, this is Officer Mitchell with the Pinewood Police Department. I need to ask you about a property visit you made last night. Yes, 47 Pine Street. No, sir, you're not in trouble, but I need to understand who hired you. There was a long pause while she listened. Patrick Kelly hired you? Another pause. And he told you his wife had agreed to the sale? Sarah's eyes met mine. I see. And did he show you any authorization from Mrs. Kelly? My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might be sick. A power of attorney. I understand. Mr. Patterson, I'm going to need you to come to the station with all your documentation. This is now a police matter. After she hung up, Sarah sat down across from me. Your husband hired Patterson to appraise the house for a potential sale. He told Patterson that you'd agreed to sell, but were too emotional about leaving the family home to be present for the assessment. He showed Patterson a notarized power of attorney with your signature, authorizing him to act on your behalf in all real estate matters. I never signed anything, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I know. I'm going to contact the notary whose seal is on the document. But Maureen, I need to prepare you. This is serious. If your husband forged legal documents and attempted to sell property that isn't his, these are felony charges. And there's something else you need to know. She pulled out her phone and showed me a social media profile. A young woman, maybe 34 or 35, with blonde hair and a bright smile. The name at the top read Jennifer Brooks. While I was researching your husband's background, I found financial transfers. Over the past 6 months, Patrick has sent $47,000 to this woman. She lives in Las Vegas, works at the Silver Palace Casino, the same casino where his online gambling account is registered. Sarah scrolled through the woman's photos. There was one from 3 months ago, Jennifer in a sundress, her hand on her slightly rounded belly, captioned, "Baby girl on the way." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table. There's more, Sarah said gently. I cross-referenced the timing of your husband's gambling debts. He owes approximately $180,000 to various online casinos and a loan shark in Nevada. The house is worth around $320,000, and you own it outright. If he sold it for $300,000, paid off his debts, he'd have about $120,000 left. Enough for a fresh start. With Jennifer and their baby. I couldn't breathe. The man I'd loved for 32 years. The man I'd built a life with. He'd been planning to steal my home, leave me with nothing, and disappear with a woman half my age and their child. We need to call him, Sarah said. Put him on speaker. I want to hear what he says. My hands shook as I dialed Patrick's number. He answered on the 3rd ring, his voice cheerful. Hey, sweetheart. Did you get the driveway shoveled? Sarah gestured for me to answer normally. Yes, I lied. All clear. Great. Did you notice anything? Any tracks or anything? My breath caught. He knew. He'd been waiting to hear if I'd erased the evidence. No, I said. Nothing. Just snow. I heard him exhale with relief. Perfect. Hey, listen, I've been thinking. Sarah took the phone from me. Mr. Kelly, this is Officer Sarah Mitchell with the Pinewood Police Department. Your wife is fine, but we need to discuss Robert Patterson and the property appraisal conducted at your home last night. The silence on the other end was deafening. I don't know what you're talking about, Patrick finally said, but his voice had changed completely. The warmth was gone. Mr. Kelly, we have security footage of Mr. Patterson at your property. We have his statement that you hired him. We have documentation of a power of attorney that your wife never signed. And we have evidence of significant financial transfers to a woman in Nevada. I strongly suggest you return home and speak with me at the police station." "I want a lawyer," Patrick said and hung up. The next 72 hours were a blur of police statements, lawyers, and documentation. Sarah connected me with Linda Patterson, no relation to the appraiser, a family law attorney who specialized in protecting women's assets in divorce cases. Patrick returned home Tuesday afternoon and was immediately arrested. The notary who'd supposedly witnessed my signature on the power of attorney turned out to be Martin Hayes, Patrick's friend from his trucking company. Martin confessed immediately, admitting Patrick had paid him $2,000 to forge the notarization. Patrick was charged with forgery, attempted fraud, and conspiracy. In exchange for a plea deal, he avoided prison time but received 2 years of probation, 300 hours of community service, and was ordered to pay me full restitution, including covering all my legal fees. But the criminal charges weren't what broke me. It was sitting in Linda's office, signing divorce papers, watching 32 years of marriage reduced to legal terminology and asset distribution. "You're doing the right thing," Linda said gently. "You know that, don't you?" I nodded, but I felt numb, empty. That evening, alone in the house that was truly mine now, I stood at the living room window where the stranger's footprints had been. The snow had melted, leaving only muddy patches on the lawn. My phone buzzed. An email. The sender name made my heart stop. Shane Kelly. With trembling fingers, I opened it. "Mom, I don't know where to start. I just got a call from someone named Officer Sarah Mitchell. She told me what Dad did. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I need to tell you something. 5 years ago, I found out Dad was gambling. I confronted him, and he told me that if I ever said anything to you, he would kill himself and make sure everyone knew it was my fault. He said you would never forgive me. I was 23 and stupid, and I believed him. He told me the best thing I could do for you was to distance myself, to not cause you stress with family drama. He convinced me that you knew about his problems and had chosen to stay, and that my involvement would only make things worse. For 5 years, I've been terrified to call you. I thought you didn't want to hear from me. Dad would tell me that you said not to bother you, that you were disappointed in me. I found out last year he'd been intercepting my emails and blocking my calls. Officer Mitchell told me the truth. She told me you never knew about any of it, that you thought I'd just abandoned you. Mom, I never abandoned you. I thought I was protecting you. I was wrong. So terribly, horribly wrong. I'm flying home tomorrow. I've already talked to my boss about transferring to the Denver office. I'm not losing any more time with you. We've lost 5 years to Dad's manipulation. I won't lose another day. I love you, Mom. I've always loved you. Please forgive me for believing his lies. Shane. I read the email 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I called him. Mom? His voice cracked when he answered. Shane, my baby boy. We both sobbed, for the lost years, for the lies, for the pain. I'm sorry, he kept saying. I'm so sorry. You were protecting me the only way you knew how, I managed. He manipulated both of us, but it's over now. It's finally over. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon, Shane said. I'm not leaving you alone anymore. Spring arrived early that year. By March, the snow had melted completely, revealing the winter-brown grass underneath, and the first crocuses were pushing through in Helen Cooper's garden. I stood in the community center on a Wednesday evening, looking at the circle of women seated around me. Beverly Thompson, 52, who'd finally left her emotionally abusive husband of 20 years. Rachel Santos, 45, still reeling from discovering her husband's second family. Grace Park, 61, widowed 6 months ago and drowning in the debt her late husband had hidden from her. And Dorothy Williams, sitting beside me, her hand warm in mine. Welcome to Second Chances, I said, addressing the group. This is a safe space for all of us. There's no judgment here, no timeline for healing. We're here to support each other. The Second Chances Fund had started small, just the $50,000 in restitution money Patrick had been ordered to pay me. I'd used it to help 2 women get security deposits for apartments so they could leave dangerous situations. Then the local newspaper ran a story. Woman uses ex-husband's fraud settlement to help other women. The headline was sensational, but the article itself was thoughtful, focusing on Dorothy's warning and how a simple act of kindness at a grocery store had saved my life. The community response was overwhelming. Within 2 months, we'd raised over $200,000. Linda Patterson donated her legal services. A local real estate agent, Maria Gonzalez, helped women find affordable housing. And Dorothy, my guardian angel, became our volunteer counselor. 27 women had been through our program now. 27 women who'd found the courage to leave, the resources to start over, the support to rebuild. Before we start tonight's session, Beverly said, I want to thank Maureen. 3 months ago, I was sleeping in my car, too afraid to ask for help. Now I have my own apartment, a job, and for the first time in 20 years, I feel like myself again. The group applauded. I blinked back tears. After the meeting, Shane was waiting for me in the parking lot, leaning against his car. At 28, he looked so much like his father had at that age, but the warmth in his eyes was all his own. How'd it go? He asked, pulling me into a hug. Good. Really good. I smiled up at him. How was your day? Productive. The Denver office is great. And I found a house I want you to look at. It's only 20 minutes from you. Shane, you don't have to live that close. Mom, I want to. We lost 5 years. I'm not wasting any more time. We drove to my house together, talking about his work, my classes at the community center. I'd started teaching a French conversation group, and our plans to finally take that trip to Paris in the fall. Inside, I made dinner while Shane set the table, just like he used to when he was a teenager. The house felt different now, lighter. It was truly mine. Not ours, not the house I shared with Patrick, but mine. I'd repainted the living room a warm cream color, hung artwork I'd created in my painting class, bought myself those Honeycrisp apples without worrying about the cost. After dinner, Shane showed me photos from his phone, pictures of the house he was thinking about buying. It has a guest room, he said pointedly, for when you visit, or, if you ever just want to stay over. My heart swelled. I'd like that. Later, after Shane left, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and thought about the past 4 months, about how one decision, trusting a stranger's warning, refusing to shovel the snow, had changed everything. My phone buzzed. A text from Dorothy. Thinking of you tonight, dear. Proud of the woman you've become. I smiled and texted back. I was always this woman. You just helped me remember. A year later, almost to the day, I walked into Peterson's grocery. The winter had been mild, with only a few light snowfalls, nothing like the storm that had changed my life. I'd come to buy ingredients for dinner. Shane was bringing his new girlfriend to meet me, and I was determined to make my grandmother's famous lasagna. At the checkout counter, I saw her, Brittany, the cashier who'd been so rude to Dorothy a year ago. She'd matured a bit. The harsh blonde hair was now a more natural color, and she smiled politely as she rang up my groceries. Mrs. Kelly, right? She said. I read about you in the paper. What you're doing with that fund, it's really cool. Thank you, Brittany. I just want to say, I think about that day a lot, with that old lady and how I treated her. I was going through some stuff, but that's no excuse. I'm glad you helped her. I'm glad she helped you. I reached across and squeezed her hand. We all have bad days. What matters is what we do next. After leaving the store, I drove to Dorothy's small apartment on the east side of town. She answered the door with her warm smile, and I held up the painting I'd brought, the one I'd been working on for months. It showed a snowy landscape with a small house. Leading away from the house were 2 sets of footprints in the snow. One set was faint, almost invisible. The other was bold and clear, leading toward a horizon painted in shades of gold and pink. At the bottom, I'd written in careful script, "Thank you for showing me the footprints that led me back to myself." Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. Oh, Maureen, it's beautiful. It doesn't really capture what you did for me, I said. How do you paint someone saving your life? Child, I didn't save your life. I just gave you a little push. You did the saving yourself. I handed her an envelope. This is for you. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a letter explaining that the Second Chances Fund was establishing the Dorothy Williams Counseling Center, which would provide free therapy and support for women escaping difficult situations. Dorothy sat down heavily in her chair, the check trembling in her hands. Maureen, this is too much. It's not nearly enough. You helped me with $12. Those $12 saved my home, my relationship with my son, my life. How do I possibly repay that? By doing exactly what you're doing, Dorothy said, pulling me into a fierce hug. By taking your pain and turning it into purpose. By helping others find their way out of the dark. We sat together for an hour, drinking tea and talking about the women we'd helped, the lives we'd changed. As I was leaving, Dorothy called out to me, Maureen, that day at the grocery store, you know what I saw in you? What? I saw myself. 40 years ago when I was trapped in a bad marriage, counting pennies, thinking I had no choices. A woman helped me then, gave me the courage to leave, to go back to school, to become a counselor. I spent my whole career trying to pay forward what she did for me. When I saw you at that checkout counter, so generous despite having so little, I knew you were supposed to be next. The next person in the chain. I wiped my eyes. Who's next for me? Dorothy smiled. You'll know when you see her. Trust me, you'll know. That December, the first real snow of the season began to fall on a Thursday afternoon. I was at the community center preparing for the weekly Second Chances meeting when I looked out the window and saw the fat, heavy flakes drifting down. For just a moment, my breath caught. But then I smiled. I thought about Patrick, now living in Las Vegas with Jennifer and their baby daughter. We'd spoken exactly once since the divorce, when he'd called to apologize, called to pias. I'd told him I forgave him, not for his sake, but for mine. Carrying anger was like drinking poison and expecting him to die. I thought about Shane, now engaged to his wonderful girlfriend Emma, talking about buying a house with a big backyard for the kids they wanted someday. He called me every day, sometimes just to say hi. We were making up for lost time. I thought about the 53 women who'd come through Second Chances now. 53 women who'd found safety, support, and new beginnings. And I thought about Dorothy, who taught me that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness ripple out in ways we can never predict. $12 for groceries. A warning about snow. A phone number pressed into a trembling hand. The snow fell softly, coating the parking lot in white. This time, watching it fall, I felt only peace. Because I'd learned something important that terrible, wonderful night a year ago. Sometimes we have to let the snow fall. We have to let the footprints show. We have to see the truth, no matter how painful, before we can clear a path forward. And now, standing in my warm, safe space, surrounded by women who were finding their own paths, I finally understood what Dorothy had meant. I hadn't just saved myself. I'd found my purpose. I'd found my way home.